Welcome to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang, your intel on the Philippine markets and the economy. In the headlines, the Philippines Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index for July rose to a 5-month high at 51.8. We'll discuss Philippine industrial strategy with Trade and Industry Secretary Cristina Roque live in studio. Fuel prices go down this week as LPG gets more expensive. And the Energy Regulatory Commission orders Meralco to return around 7.5 billion pesos to customers through electricity bill refunds. Philippine factory activity continued to expand in July. A stronger demand pushed new orders and production to their highest levels before the Middle East conflict broke out. Data from the S&P Global showed the country's Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index rose to a 5-month high of 51.8 in July, up from 50.9 in June. The report said stronger underlying demand and new project wins helped drive the increase in orders, prompting manufacturers to boost output and purchasing activity. At the same time, firms reported renewed pressure from higher input costs and longer supplier delivery times, which they linked to the conflict in the Middle East. And joining us this morning is Trade and Industry Secretary Cristina Roque. It's good seeing you again, Sec Chris. Welcome back to the program.
Hi, Cathy. Thank you again for having me.
So what do you make of it? It's a 5-month high, an increase for a third straight month on the Philippine manufacturers PMI.
Yes, actually there's really a push and there's really, we really make sure that we can get this manufacturing industry going, not just for the needs locally but also globally. So, nandyan talaga yung push ng government to make sure that we get the products out there, whether locally or globally. So, we are always assisting all of these manufacturing industries, and the department really has a lot of opportunities and possibilities for them.
Such as, maybe we could discuss the push for exports, those serving the global market.
Yes, correct.
What has the DTI done so far, given that we've had a Middle East conflict that has given us an oil shock with costs really moving higher?
Yes, actually, as I mentioned before, no, in 2025, we hit an all-time high of 15.4%, and then January up again, February up, March up by 20.4%, April up again, May up, June, we just got the numbers that it's an all-time high again of 24%. So again, we can really see that these the Philippine products are really ready for the global market. So aside from the global market that we're really pushing, we're also making sure that the strength of the local market is there. So dapat talagang alagaan both local market and global market, because actually the local market is the market that is attractive to the foreign investor. So talagang yung mga manufacturers natin, no, and even the exporters, no, we also encourage them to sell locally, not just globally. In fact, last month or a few weeks ago, we just had the exports fair in Mega Mall, no, which is the first time actually that exporters had the opportunity to showcase their products that they export. So they were actually amazed also at the sales that they received, and also a lot of inquiries and a lot of orders that they received from the local market.
Could you give us some color there on the demand overseas for our exporters, and also of the local demand that those exhibitors have seen?
Yes, actually malaki talaga yung demand overseas, especially now with the free trade agreements. The Marcos administration will go down in history as the most free trade agreement, which is 23. So we are down now to the last 5, which we hope to conclude this year, which the Philippine-EU FTA, which is a huge market. The European market is a huge market. Then there's also the Philippine-Canada FTA, which again is a big market, the Canadian market. And then after that, we just concluded the Philippine-Chile FTA, which will open the South America market, the 300 million population in South America. And then we have the JPEPA, which we hope to conclude in November, which will also be a big boost for the banana industries.
Well,
And
what
then,
more can you tell us about Chile? Because that has come
okay.
through
Yes, yeah.
last week.
Yes,
what
yeah.
benefits are we seeing in that $300 million market?
Okay, there is a lot of potential in the agriculture industry, which is very important for us because we need to give jobs to the farmers, and we really feel that this is an industry where we can still level up leaps and bounds. In fact, yung coconut hit 34.4% increase last year, and then for pineapples and bananas, still growing, but we've seen rising stars in ube and then calamansi. So, yun, ipupush pa natin yun. And there's really a major effort on the Department of Trade on the exports of all of these products. The semiconductors are still there. I mean, the minerals and also a lot of automotive parts. So, semiconductor is still on top, but we want to see a big rise in the agriculture industry. So,
But the U.S. is still the biggest market by far.
yes.
And the U.S. has imposed a 12.5% tariff
Yes, yeah.
since last July 24. And on the basis of allegations of forced labor
Yes,
in
yeah.
our supply chains.
Yes,
What has
yeah.
the DTI done so far to address those allegations?
For us, we had just signed the JAO, Joint Administrative Order with DOF and also DOLE and DTI, that we don't buy products that are child labor, forced labor. We don't do that also here in the Philippines. So we are very firm on this, that there is no such thing that happens in the Philippines, or we don't also purchase from companies that do these kinds of activities. So that's one. And we are still in constant negotiations also. So there are some products that are not a part of the 12.5, but again, we cannot really reveal them because we are still under negotiation. So continuous pa rin ang negotiations with the U.S. market. But in the meantime, just by looking at the growth of the export, the world is our market, not just the U.S. So we need to get these free trade agreements going so that we can really also penetrate bigger markets of the world. Yeah.
But what would be an acceptable negotiated settlement, if you will, with the U.S.? Because some of the products not impacted, like semiconductors, some agricultural products,
Yes,
but
yeah.
there are sectors that are impacted, like apparel,
Yes, yeah.
toys,
Correct.
leather goods, travel gear.
Yes, yeah.
What are we doing, or the DTI doing, to help them?
First, we need to find other markets for them. So we have an office in the DTI called the Export Marketing Bureau, which actually makes sure that we find other markets for them. And we've done this already. Even in the Middle East crisis, like some of the products that we export to the Middle East, we have found either local market for them or other foreign markets for them. So they can count on the Philippine government and the Department of Trade to find additional market for them. That's one. And then number two, we also make sure that they just don't concentrate on one market. We educate them that the world is the market. So hindi tayo pwedeng umasa lang sa isang market, because in case may aberya or there are challenges in that particular market, dapat meron pa silang ibang pwedeng pasukan ng market.
Such as the local market,
Yes,
as you
that's
mentioned a
the
couple of
local
moments
market.
ago.
Yes, yeah,
What
which
are
is
the
huge,
opportunities,
yeah.
and how huge is that, given that it's a slowing economy and inflation is still elevated? Where is demand coming from for manufacturers who go export and who also can provide for the local market?
The local market is huge. We are almost 115 million Filipinos. So from there alone, you can see the may buying power. So with the products of exporters, that are high quality na, mataas na ang kwalidad ng mga local, mga export product because for them to be accepted in the global market, they have met certain standards. So, madali silang makahanap ng mabibentahan dito dito
Such
sa
as?
Philippines.
Ano yung mabenta rito ngayon?
Okay, let's say food. They can sell in grocery, supermarkets, hotels, also cafes. There's really actually malaking opportunity dito. In fact, some of the tycoons, they only concentrate on the local market. It's already more than enough. So, malaking opportunity. But if you have both local and you also have global, then it's win-win for the company. So, sometimes in every crisis such as this, we become more creative in finding other ways to at least yung compensate ba for markets that we cannot enter for the meantime. So what happens is we open that market, and then when this market now becomes accessible again, then now we have new markets plus this market. So now ang laki na ng ano natin. So it's always good to avail of all the opportunities that the Philippine government and the Department of Trade has to offer them. We also have 21 DTI offices all over the world with 29 trade attaches. So we can open opportunities for them there.
And that opportunity, that creativity you mentioned is based on a framework. We have the Tatak Pinoy strategy
yes, we
that
have
we
the Tatak.
haven't really been so informed about, but really is the backbone of this strategy of supporting local that goes global. Where
Yes.
are we now in that strategy?
Okay, we just actually launched the Tatak Pinoy, which is last month. So we are now encouraging all the industries to avail of this seal, the Tatak Pinoy seal, because there are so many opportunities for them once they have the Tatak Pinoy seal. So there are 9 different industries that are qualified for this Tatak Pinoy seal. So it's best for them. Actually, we are in contact with these industries. So they are now onboarding or availing the Tatak Pinoy seal. Like example of course, they can always sell. They have market here locally and then globally. But now there's also the opportunity of government procurement. So malaki rin ang potential ng supplying the government. So if they have the Tatak Pinoy seal, they have priority and they also have accessibility to government procurement.
Now, how does that connect with the semiconductor framework, as semiconductors really are a very important component
Correct,
in
yeah.
trade, and the government's just lifted the use of eco-zones
Yes,
in
yes,
Metro Manila.
yeah,
How
yes,
does that
yeah.
all connect to that whole industrial strategy that takes us all the way to Pac Silica?
Yeah, okay. For the semiconductors, so we're really pushing for the semiconductor industry because first, this is one of our top, if not our top export. So again, ang importante actually for the semiconductor industry is talent. So we still need, even you ask the big companies, what do you need? Talent, talent, talent. So continuous ang training in TESDA, continuous ang training talaga nila to make sure that we have the talent for these companies that are coming in. So that's one. Number 2, the eco zones. We just lifted, or the President just lifted the AO18 moratorium for Metro Manila, meaning now PEZA zones can now be in Metro Manila, but this is for IT. So IT BPM, any industry that has to do with digitalization, innovation hub, because we need to move closer to the city also, more modern and more, we need to push also digitalization, we need to push the digital economy, we need to level up in these areas where we feel there's still so much potential for growth in the Philippines.
And that leveling up is, as you mentioned, in talent.
Yes, talent,
But
yes,
talent
yeah.
for who? Because a lot of the criticism really stems from the fact that it could mean talent for the low-value assembly, test, and packaging that we want to stay away from as we go AI native. And of course, also the use of critical minerals in creating
Yes.
whatever is AI native in the ecosystem.
Yes, actually talent that's really needed for the industry. So very specific na kami. So we want also these talents in the digital space because of the high-paying jobs. Malaking bayad sa kanila. So ang importante is we provide all of these, let's say, opportunities for them to learn. So it's up to them to choose whether they go for the higher, for the middle, or for the lower. at least what's important is may opportunity para sa kanila.
Such as, could you
Para
name
sa
maybe
mga
one or
tao.
two jobs that can be generated by Pac Silica that's of high value?
Madami. Not just for Pac Silica, but also for the Luzon Economic Corridor, for PEZA, for Batangas. There's actually so many eco-zones that are being put up because there's a lot of investments and investors that are coming in or that are expanding here in the Philippines. So there's also, like I just came from Singapore, they're also looking for land to develop logistic parks naman. So madami talagang opportunities dito, not just in the IT, but also in the logistics sector, also in, let's say, for PEZA, for manufacturing, marami talagang ano. So that is important for us, especially with the Create More Act, where the incentives are very attractive now for foreign investors.
All right, we'll leave it there then. Thank you
Yes,
so much for the
yeah.
update.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Secretary
Thank you.
Chris
Thank you.
Roque
Thank
of
you.
the Trade and Industry. You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, fuel price rollback takes effect today, and the impeachment trial for Vice President Sara Duterte resumes today. Our mobile journalist, Medimon Reyes, joins us from the Senate. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. All eyes on the major economic data due out this week, with analysts expecting slower growth and persistently high inflation. A Business World survey of 21 economists and analysts show a median forecast of 2.8% GDP growth for the second quarter. They cited elevated inflation weighing on household spending, along with weak business confidence and slow public infrastructure spending. If realized, this would be much slower than the 5.4% expansion recorded a year ago and would match the 2.8% growth in the first quarter of this year. The forecast would also bring first-half GDP growth to 2.8%, below the government's 3.5% to 4.5% full-year target. Second quarter GDP data will be released on Friday, August 7th. Meantime, a separate Business World poll shows a median forecast of 6.4% for July inflation, unchanged from June. If realized, this would mark a fifth straight month of inflation above the Bangko Central's 4% ceiling. The estimate, however, falls within the central bank's 5 to 6 to 6.6% forecast for the month. Analysts said lower rice prices likely helped offset higher fuel and electricity costs. July inflation data is out on Wednesday, August 5th. Motorists may get a small reprieve at the pump as prices are set to go down tomorrow, Tuesday. But consumers using LPG will now need to pay more for their tanks. DOE Oil Industry Management Bureau Chief Rino Abad estimates diesel prices may fall by 50 cents per liter, gasoline by 80 cents per liter, and kerosene by 2 pesos and 30 centavos. That's based on 4 days of trading at the Mine of Platts, Singapore. Final figures are expected to be announced today. As for LPG, Regasco begins implementing today an increase of 2 pesos and 50 cents per kilogram. That translates to a rise of 27 pesos and 50 cents in the price of a standard 11-kilogram cylinder. Petron Gasul raised LPG prices on Saturday by 3 pesos per kilo. Overseas, U.S. President Donald Trump has held off on a fresh attack over progress on a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and halt Tehran's nuclear program.
I was asked to by Saudi Arabia, by UAE, and by Qatar, and by Iran. We were all set to go just about at this time right now, and it would have been a massive attack. But when the allies ask to call it off, you got to sort of say, well, let's see. And the reason they asked is I think there's a deal. There's a deal on Hormuz, and then there will be a deal on the nuclear, or you might call it the denuclearization of Iran. I call it the denuclearization of Iran.
As of 8:30 a.m. Philippine time, a benchmark Brent crude is trading at $84 a barrel, down 4.6%, while West Texas Intermediate is sitting at $81 per barrel, down 4.8%. Meralco customers are set to receive 9.5 billion pesos in total refunds following an order from the Energy Regulatory Commission. The refund, equivalent to about 34 centavos per kilowatt hour, will be applied over 6 months beginning next billing cycle. The amount covers excess collections from January to December 2025, including nearly 500 million pesos in interest. Meralco says it will comply with the order and implement the refund as quickly as possible. Meralco and Signal TV, the owner of this channel, are part of the MVP Group. Impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte enters day 11, with prosecutors set to present their next witness on the alleged misuse of confidential funds. For the latest from the Senate, let's bring in our mobile journalist, Merimon Reyes. So what can we expect from today's hearing, Merimon?
Cathy, for day 11 of the historic impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte, the prosecution will still focus on the article of impeachment 1, alleging the misuse of public funds, or in this case, the 612.5 million pesos worth of confidential funds from both the Office of the Vice President and the Department of Education from year 2022 to 2023. The prosecution will shift its focus on how the VP's alleged confidential funds were spent and liquidated when it presents 2 Commission on Audit officials and 1 House of Representatives records custodian, after tracing first last week how the money moved from National Treasury to cash withdrawals or disbursement. The prosecution will begin presenting their case in chief with Roderick Wamil, former state auditor of the COA's Intelligence and Confidential Funds Office. Tomorrow will be State Auditor Celine May del Campo, and on Wednesday, supposedly, will be House of Representatives Legislative Information Resources Management Department Director Marivic Pareja. In total, for this specific article of impeachment, the prosecution has 13 witnesses in line, but they may not present all if allegations can be established by fewer testimonies and documentary evidence. The impeachment trial is set to continue and to begin at 10 o'clock in the morning until 3 p.m. today. And Mondays to Wednesdays, ang schedule 4 p.m. onwards will be for the plenary session of the Senate. Cathy.
All right, we'll be watching and waiting. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes, thank you so much for the update. Let's take a quick check on the Philippine peso and see how that's open Monday. It is stronger, 61 flat to the dollar. Peso strengthened by 32 centavos last Friday to close at 61.24 against the greenback, the best finish since June 29. The local unit may move sideways this week and likely hold the 61 per dollar level. Traders will monitor the movement of global oil prices and the release of key economic data, including inflation and second quarter GDP. Checking in on the markets overseas, U.S. stock futures rise in overnight trading as investors await for the jobs report and other earnings releases. The Nasdaq climbs 0.6%. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 advanced 0.4%. Asian markets are tumbling in early trading Monday. South Korea's Kospi falls 5.4%, coming from an 18% surge last Friday, its biggest daily rise on record. Japan's Nikkei 225 sheds 1.8%, and Australia's ASX 200 slides 0.33%. On Sunday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent confirmed that Washington and Tokyo coordinated foreign exchange action to prop up the Japanese yen. The yen has slid to 40-year lows, with intervention from the Japanese government in April and May only causing brief rebounds. Bessent said the U.S. would not hesitate to participate in further joint interventions. U.S. markets rose Friday despite a rout in Apple shares. The Nasdaq climbed 1%. S&P 500 0.7%, and the Dow 0.5%. Apple shed 7% after its sale projection missed Wall Street's target. Amazon, though, surged 15%, the largest percentage increase since 2012 due to an acceleration in its cloud computing units. Philippine markets ended in the negative last Friday, with cautious trading expected to prevail this week. The benchmark PSEI fell 1.1% to settle at 6,236. Week on week, the stock market lost 0.7%. This week, investors will be keeping an eye on the release of key macroeconomic data. Trade Asia notes that July's inflation and second quarter GDP can both influence the Bangko Central's rate path. July's inflation will be out on August 5th, while GDP results on August 7th. One stock rallying in recent days is ABS-CBN Corp, which closed Friday at 3.44 pesos per share, a 135% rise from its record low of 1.78 pesos in June. Ron Acoba of Trading Edge says the rally is fueled by speculation of a white knight investor pursuing a takeover of the company. And the 10-year government bond yields ticked down to 7.43%. The country's major telecommunications companies have proposed a $500 million undersea fiber optic network to expand connectivity across the Philippines. The Department of Information and Communications Technology says Globe, PLDT, and Converge have proposed a 30.6 billion peso project to link the country through undersea fiber optic cables. The plan would connect Batanes to Palawan, with links extending to the Visayas and Mindanao, providing better access to islands and other underserved areas. The DICT is now evaluating the proposal, which still requires government approval. If cleared, the project could be completed within 2 years. Secretary Henry Aguda said the undersea network would also feature sensing technology that can detect earthquakes and tsunamis, support real-time data collection, and strengthen national defense. And that is it for Money Talks. I'm Cathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Kapatid, we are One News, your side, all the time. Morning Matters returns at 9:30 a.m. Have a great day ahead.